Okay, I think that is it. And first off, before I start, I think, and I say this with great reservation as always, because the technical side of things has always been little bit tricky, especially this summer, trying to change things around in the midst of a bunch of other stuff. But I think I may have solved the problem of people commenting. So those of you out there who have tried to comment in the past and have had an issue with it, please go ahead and try and comment tonight. Just again, to see if I did in fact find it. I found one kind of weird, obscure setting in the advanced settings that said something about only friends of friends were allowed to comment, which was never my intention. I don't know how that was snuck in there or why I had that as a default setting, but it did. So anyway, that's the first thing. The second thing is hello, good morning, good afternoon, evening, wherever you may happen to be in the world. I'm Tad. It's good to see you. Without going into details, it's been a rough last few weeks, goes without saying, and you know, our whole family is definitely all pitched in together to help each other get through it, and we're doing okay. That's basically what I'll say about it for now. We're doing okay. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it because there's not really a lot to talk about, honestly. I do appreciate all the kind words from people, and I've had many. I feel like a bit of a as always, as my mom would have too, I always feel like a bit of a fraud when I'm being given, words of kindness, and I'm thinking, I'm so lucky compared to most people. I don't really need all these well wishes, but that doesn't mean they don't get appreciated, that they go unnoticed. They don't. I'm just talking about a weird family habit of of wanting to be seen to be nice people, and wanting to have friends, and wanting all that stuff, and then feeling faintly embarrassed when people pay attention to you. It's a weird discrepancy, or idiosyncrasy maybe would be a more general word for it. It's a weird situation. But and I know that's my mom was that way. I mean, I got it directly from her, as with so many other traits. Anyway, but very nice to hear from you all. It's been very good. I hope everything is working well with the sound here now and the picture, that I've solved those issues. And as I said at the beginning, I'm still trying to solve the people not being able to comment problem. So if you get a chance, if you're one of those people, please try again. Let's see if I found it. As I said, I found something which I didn't know about, which was stuck away in the advanced settings on Facebook, and I think may have been part of the issue. So anyway, that is pretty much it in terms of, in the midst of horror, crisis, depression, all those things, I'm more than ever grateful to have work to do, and when I can, and that's both physically and mentally, when I can, I've been working. So I'm still plunging ahead, getting into the last stretches of Navigator's Children, which is interesting because this is stuff that I've been thinking about, some of it since 2014. And when you finally get to that point that you're actually taking something that you'd envisioned in this very vaporous, ephemeral way for years, and then you get to that point and you have to actually make it concrete. And of course, oftentimes things have changed, or in the situation that I'm in right now, there's just a great deal of sort of all these characters are in the same space, but that you have to make it work. That each bit where somebody runs into somebody, meets somebody for the first time, is reunited with somebody, faced off with somebody that they hate, whatever it might happen to be, each one has to feel like a separate little bit. It has to have its own logic to it, and it has to work as a scene. In other words, you can't just keep writing the same scene. Oh, it's so-and-so. Hi, so-and-so. Hey, I didn't know you were alive. I mean, you can't just write a scene like that over and over and over again. Not to mention that they're all different characters with different reactions to things, and there's a lot of other information that is finally being explained or set up, things that are going to happen that are being set up. So it's a really interesting part to write when I can put my brain to it. But I can see the end now, at least heaving into view. So even though I've been a bit delayed, it is almost finished. Now that is my first draft, but my first drafts, as I've said before to people who asked, people who wanted to know for some reason, I've said are almost 90% of the work for me, because these things are, and interestingly enough, every time I describe them, I make the same hand gesture too. They're so woven together, these stories, because of the number of focal point characters and the timing of things and all this stuff, and the need again to make every scene have some resonance as a scene by itself, and not merely be ticking off a box of like, oh yeah, we have to see what that character's doing, or oh yes, we have to check in on this plot line. No, each one has to have some meaning in and of itself, and as a result, then there's all this stuff going on, and it is very interesting. I mean, just as a thing to do, just as a mental exercise, finding different ways to slot things together, trying them in your head, saying, that didn't work. It's an interesting thing, and I certainly need things to keep my excuse me. Sorry about that. I certainly need things to keep me occupied at the moment, so very, very grateful for that. Anyway, I am going to say hello to the people who have showed up, and then I am going to go back to reading. I believe we're on chapter 14 of the Dragonbone chair, and I am going to continue with that tonight, and I think probably read the whole thing. I'm not sure how long a chapter it is. Anyway, so let me see who's checked in. Suzanne, hello, good morning. Good to see you. Julian, good morning, good morning. Thanks for the kind words. Laura, hello, Laura. I'm fine. Well, no, I'm not fine, but under the circumstances, I'm doing pretty well. Again, we have a really big-hearted family. I mean, I'm just saying, my brothers, their wives, we're all in it. We're all dealing with it together. And, I mean, if you got to go into a situation like this, you want to go into a situation like this with the kind of people that I have around me. And I hope I'm holding up my end of things. And we're just all doing our best to get through it. So I'm doing okay under the circumstances. Who else have I not said hello to yet? Petra, hello, hello. Good to see you. Tracy, good morning. This is Tracy McClatchy. Hello, Tracy. Ronnie, hello, good morning, good morning. And Mark, same to you. Good to see you. Thank you for dropping by. Who else did I just accidentally skip over when I didn't mean to? Oh, Ilva. Hello, sweetie. Good to see you. Did I send? Now I'll ask you some other time. Never mind. This is not really the best format for trying to ask people questions. But anyway, good to see you as always. Alan David Clark. Good evening to you. Sandra. Good morning from Vienna. I miss Vienna. I haven't seen it in years. What a lovely city. Maria Jose. Good morning. And there is my mother-in-law. Hi, Hazel. As I said, we're doing okay. Love to you too. I hope you're over the worst of all your COVID stuff and that you're doing better now. Anyway, good to see you. Love to everybody. Debbie, good morning. Mahmoud, hello. Thank you, Mahmoud. I'm doing okay under the circumstances. Emily, hello, Em. Good morning and love to you and all of you guys in Aldridge. So much love to you, and the M is also family. Holger, good morning. Good to see you. Boris, cheers, mate. That was a word that I started using all the time when I was in England. And it's one of those many words with which I confuse my American friends sometimes, because I just use it now in the English way, and one of the great things about the term cheers in England or in the UK in general, or in Ireland maybe, I don't know about Ireland, I can't remember from my last time there, but it's really an all-purpose word, I mean, it probably started out as cheers, like have a drink, salute. But it kind of means all kinds of things in the British vernacular now. It means hey or bye or thank you or, hey, that's just what I needed, or, any number of things. So I started using it that way. And of course, and putting it at the end of things. And in Americans, it has a much more specific meaning. It either means literally something you say when you're making a toast, or it means what you do at a sporting event. You cheer, So the cheers filled the air, but it's not anywhere near as common a thing. And it's one of the many common Britishisms I picked up that puzzle my American friends and neighbors. Chuffed is, of course, another one, which, I was dead chuffed to see that. Just means I was very excited to see that or very pleased. But, when you say chuffed to people who, in America, they look at you as if you started speaking Badger. It confuses them. And there are many of those. I worked really hard when I lived in England for 3 years when Deb and I were first together. And I have a tendency to pick up accents, dialects, anything, wherever I am. I remember being elbowed by my first wife in a taxi coming in from the airport in New Orleans because within 10 minutes I had already unconsciously started imitating the driver and the way the driver talked. And so I have a tendency to do this. It's not anything, I don't think I'm good at it. I'm not doing it because I think it's amusing. It's literally probably some kind of social or moral cowardice at work, trying to blend in. I don't know what it is. Or just wanting to be liked or something. I mean, some weird subconscious thing. But I do. And so when I moved to England, I was very conscious that I will not, pick up some kind of weird Anglo-American accent so that when I go back to the States, all my friends go, who are you, Madonna? Or something like that. So as a result, I worked really, really hard. Every time I'd catch myself starting to kind of subconsciously mimic the people around me, I would stop myself. What I did not manage to do, however, is to prevent myself from picking up British slang and British ordinary ways of talking. So while very consciously hanging on to my American accent, I came back saying bloody this and bloody that and bugger all and dead chuffed and, oh, she's mad as a stick and, all these other Britishisms. And really used to confuse people down at the YMCA when I would, miss a layup or something and burst into a stream of British imprecations, none of which they knew. I don't know why I'm telling you all this. I just am. And I just did. Okay, so hello. Oh, it was because Boris said cheers. Cheers, Boris. Pierre, hello. Good to have you. Jeremy, good morning. Yes, the heat did go down today, thank goodness. It was rather nasty, although it's better here at the coast, but it was still unpleasant yesterday. And I know on the other side, because I've been staying over on your side of the hill too, it's been miserably hot. Kristen, hello, good to see you. Sandra, you were one of the ones who couldn't comment here, but now it's working. Thank you. Yeah. Right on. I'm so pleased. I finally solved it. I get so frustrated with these kinds of things. It's not because I'm an idiot. Honestly, it's not. It's not because I'm an idiot. I'm actually fairly good with tech for a boomer, for a late boomer, and the kind of tail end of the boomer generation. I'm pretty good with tech. Not a engineer or anything or a programmer, but I did, I worked for Apple for a few years, and I've grown up in Silicon Valley, and my dad is a chemist, and I'm not one of those technophobes, but there's so many things these days and so many different things to learn that there are times when I go like, am I just one of those clueless boomers you hear about? I think I told you the other day that I had a guy over from something, Geek Squad or something, because I'd run into this problem I simply could not solve with my home network. And I was so grateful when the guy left, because he was going like, I don't know what it is either. And I was like, thank you. You've totally restored my faith. I'm so glad to know I'm not just a hopeless idiot. Anyway, so Yeah, I'm so pleased to hear that, Sandra. Thank you for telling me. Hertie, hello, Hertie. And Alan David Clark, is the volume low or is it just you? Shouldn't be low. I think I've actually got it turned up pretty high, just based on my little dials here. But I just cranked it up a tiny bit. So, Ronnie, do I pretty much always know the ending from the very beginning? That is actually a question I've been asked before. And I have a kind of, not a canned answer, but I have answered it before, and I'll try to do it fairly briefly so we can get to the reading. Here's the thing. When you're writing a multi-volume story, you have two contrasting, what do you want to call them? Not impulses. You have two contrasting necessities, two things you need to do a good job. One of them is that you have to treat your, in my case, 4-volume trilogies as a single story, okay? Because I'm not writing separate books where each one takes place years apart or with different characters or whatever. This is one very long story. So as a result, I have to be able to foreshadow in just the way I would if it was only a single novel, as if when I was writing The Witchwood Crown, as if it was the first quarter of one book. And so you're foreshadowing things that are going to happen at the end of the book. Well, when you're only writing one book, when you're writing a single volume novel, oh, there, I just screwed up my focus again. When you're writing a single volume novel, you actually have the, what's the word I'm looking for? You have the luxury of being able to edit. Let's see if we can get it to focus on my hands. I need a new camera. There we go. You have the luxury of editing your first draft. So if you do something wrong, you get to the end of the book, you realize, oh, that red herring didn't work, or, oh my God, now I've contradicted something I said earlier. You just fix it all at the same time. By the time I get to the end of a long set of books, usually the first book or two is already in print. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. So on the one hand, I do have to know enough about the ending that I can foreshadow or appear to foreshadow, because sometimes you're kind of faking it. You know something significant is going to happen, but you don't yet know exactly how it's going to work. So you make it clear that it's significant so the reader will remember it, but you leave it vague enough that you can amend it afterwards to make it fit. So that's one necessity. But the other necessity is that you cannot plan out, first of all, you can't plan out 1,000,000+ words in terms of plot and characters and all this stuff and all the many intersections of them. You can't plan that out in advance. Or if you could, by the time you finished planning it, you've basically written the book without writing it, which is a lot of work. And then you have to try to recapture the excitement of coming up with those ideas while rewriting something you've already figured out. So that doesn't really work. Part of that is because also books grow as you're writing. Stories grow as you're writing. Things change, things happen, things influence you. You have ideas that you wouldn't have had if you'd tried to outline the whole thing at once at the beginning. So as a result, I always refer to it as this sort of tightrope act where you're trying not to go too far one way or the other. You're trying to foreshadow as best you can, and treat it like it's a single volume, and give the reader the things that they will feel, that they will want to feel like, I had a chance to figure that out, or, oh yes, I remember that, now I know why that was significant. But on the other hand, you want to leave it a lively enough performance where you're actually making the magic as you're doing it, as you're telling the story. You're coming up with things, you're inspiring yourself. Sometimes literally I will write myself into a corner and put a character in a situation that I don't know how they're going to get out of. And just to keep it fresh, because I want the reader to say the same thing, like, how are they going to get out of that? There's no way they're going to get out of that. And then hopefully I come up with something that will work. If not, I have to tear the whole thing down. But that doesn't happen very often, fortunately. So that's basically how it is. You don't know the whole ending, but you have to know enough bits and pieces of it, enough important things that you can foreshadow, that you can hint, that you can drop clues, But you need to leave yourself enough room to learn and grow, and for the book to grow and become more complex, and for the emergent bits to show up while you're writing. And the nature of emergent phenomena in the writing of long novels is something I'll do a whole show on sometime, because it's fascinating, I think. Anyway, so who have I said hello to? I know there's still people. That was Ronnie. Yes, Ronnie. So I hope that answered your question. Alan. Okay, I did give you a little more volume there, I hope. Andre, hello. In the middle of Bobby Dollar Part 1, I love the voice and the humor. Thank you so much. As those of you who are regular watchers know, except for the fact that I'm pretty clean-spoken, a carryover from my old radio days, on these kinds of live readings, I'm pretty profane in real life. But other than that, you've seen enough of me to know that Bobby Dollar, that's the closest to like my pure voice, to how I think about things and how I talk about things. And so they were fun to write. They were only one character. You were following him all the way through. And it was kind of the most natural way of talking that I've ever gotten to do in a book. So I enjoyed those very much, and I'd like to go back and write some more one day. Joshua, hello Joshua, good to see you, thank you. And Nicole, good morning, good morning. And Cindy, hello, long time, good to see you. So there, I think I've caught up with everybody who has chipped in to leave their tracks here by the water hole. And if I missed anybody, I apologize. We are reading The Dragonbone Chair. There's that lovely Michael Whalen cover, front and back, with Kantaka. Kantaka, by the way, is, did I mention this before? Kantaka is named after the horse reputedly ridden by the Buddha. Although in the case of the Buddha's horse, it was actually spelled Kantaka. But me being me, with my fascination with names and my penchant for putting weird little jokes in my names, that was one of them. That's where the name of Kantaka the wolf comes from. But if you're just reading this for the first time with me, then you don't know who Kantaka is yet. But we'll get to her. Chapter 14, The Hill Fire. He awakened in a long, dark room surrounded by still sleeping figures. It had all been a dream, of course. He was back in his bed among the other slumbering scullions, the only light a thin film of moon glow sliding in through a crack in the door. He shook his aching head. Why am I sleeping on the floor? These stones are so cold. And why did the others lie so unmovingly, their shadowy shapes fantastic with helmets and shields, laid out on their beds in neat rows like the dead awaiting judgment? It had all been a dream, hadn't it? With a gasp of terror, Simon crawled away from the black mouth of the tunnel toward the blue-white chink in the doorway. The images of the dead, fixed in a mobile stone atop their ancient tombs, did not stay his passing. Let me read that sentence again. The images of the dead, fixed in a mobile stone atop their ancient tombs, did not stay his passing. He shouldered open the heavy door of the crypt and fell forward into the long, damp grass of the lich yard. After what had seemed countless years in the black places below, the round ivory moon that ranged high in the darkness above looked like yet another hole, this one leading to a cool, lamp-lit place beyond the sky, a country of shining rivers and forgetfulness. He lowered his cheek to the ground and felt the wet strands bend beneath his face. Fingers of time-worn rock thrust up on either side through the prisoning grass or stretched headlong in broken segments, etched by the moon in bone-white light, nameless and uncaring as the ancient dead whose graves they marked. In Simon's mind, the dark span of hours, from the last fiery moments in the doctor's chambers to the night-damp grass of the present, was as unreachable as the nearly invisible clouds threading the sky. The shouting and the cruel flames, Morganes's burning face, Pryrates' eyes like punch holes into ultimate darkness. These were as genuine as the breath he had just taken. The tunnel was only dwindling, half-remembered pain, a fog of voices and empty madness. He knew there had been rough walls and cobwebs and endlessly forking tunnels. It seemed there had also been vivid dreams of sadness and the death of beautiful things. Altogether, he felt drained dry like an autumn leaf, fragile and without strength. He thought he had crawled at the end. His knees and arms were certainly sore enough, and his clothing was torn, but his memory seemed cloaked in darkness. None of it was quite real, not like the lich ground where he now lay, the moon's quiet commons yard. Sleep was pushing at the back of his neck with soft, heavy hands. He fought it, rising to his knees with a slow shake of the head. It would not do to doze off here. There had been, as far as he knew, no pursuit through the blocked doorway of the doctor's chamber, but that didn't mean a great deal. His enemies had soldiers and horses and the king's authority. Drowsiness was pushed aside by fear and not a little anger. They had stolen all else from him. His friends, his home. They would not take his life and freedom too. He climbed carefully to his feet and looked around, steadying himself on the leaning stones of the tomb as he wiped away tears of exhaustion and fear. The town wall of Irchester loomed some half a league away, a moonlit belt of stone separating the sleeping citizens from the lich yard and the world beyond. Before the outer gate sprawled the pale band of the Weldhelm Road. On Simon's right, it meandered gradually north to the hills. On his left, it companioned the river Imstrecka through the farmlands below Swartcliffe, past Falshire on the far bank, and ultimately to the grasslands of the east. It seemed likely that these towns along the great road would be the first places that the Erkenguard would search for a fugitive. Also, much of the road's length wandered through the valley farms of Hasu Vale, where he would be hard-pressed to find a hiding place if forced off the path. Turning his back on Irchester, and the only home he had yet known, Simon hobbled out across the lich yard toward the far downs. His first step set off a flare of pain at the base of his skull, but he knew it would be best to ignore the aches of body and spirit for a while longer, fleeing as far away from the castle as possible while it was still dark. He could worry about the future when he had found a safe place to lie up. As the moon scudded across the warm sky toward midnight, Simon's steps grew heavier and heavier. The lich yard seemed to have no ending. Indeed, the ground had begun to rise and fall over the gentle humps of the outer downs while he still walked among the weathered stone teeth, some solitary and upright, others leaning together like old men in senile colloquy. He wove in and out among the buried pillars, stumbling across the uneven, tussocky ground. Every step became a struggle, as though he waded in high waters. Staggering with weariness, he tripped over yet one more concealed stone and fell heavily to the ground. He tried to rise, but his limbs felt like sacks of wet sand. After crawling forward a short distance, he curled up on the sloping shoulder of a grassy mound. Something dug into his back, and he rolled clumsily to one side. This made him almost equally uncomfortable, since he was now lying on Morganes's folded manuscript, tucked under his belt. Staring, eyes half shut with exhaustion, he reached out to find the original source of irritation. It was a piece of metal, thick with corrosion and perforated like worm-gnawed wood. He tried to pull it free, but it was stuck fast in the earth. Perhaps the rest of it, whatever it might be, lay deep in the soil of the moon-frosted mound, anchored by dirt. A spear point? A belt buckle or greave from some costume whose owner had long since gone to feed the grass on which he lay? Simon thought for a bleary moment of all the bodies lying deep beneath the earth, the flesh that had once been quick with life, but now mouldered in silence and darkness. As sleep captured him at last, it seemed that he was again on the roof of the chapel. Below him sprawled the castle, but this castle was made of damp, crumbling soil and blind white roots. The people in the castle slept on and on, tossing uneasily, as in their dreams they heard Simon walking on the rooftop above their beds. He walked now, or dreamed he did, along a black river that splashed noisily but reflected no light, like fluid shadow. He was surrounded by mist and could discern nothing of the land he walked on but a certain dimness. He heard many voices in the obscurity behind him, their murmurs intermixed with the slurring voice of the black water, coming closer, rushing like wind through the leaves. No mist or fog shrouded the far side of the river. The grass on the nether bank stretched out before his gaze, and beyond it a somber grove of alder trees sloped up to the skirts of the hills. All the country beyond the river was dark and moist, as though it stood at dawn or twilight. After a moment it seemed clear to him that it must be evening, for the close-leaning hills echoed with the distant, solitary song of a nightingale. Everything seemed fixed and unchanging. He peered across the burbling water and saw a figure standing by the river's edge on the far shore. A woman, dressed all in gray, long straight hair shadowing the sides of her face. In her arms she held something close cradled. When she turned her eyes up to him, he saw that she was weeping. It seemed that he knew her. "Who are you?" he cried. His voice died out as the words left his mouth, swallowed up by the damp hiss of the river. The woman stared at him as if to memorize every feature with her wide, dark eyes. At last she spoke. "Salmon!" Her words came as down a long corridor, faint and hollow. "Why have you not come to me, my son? The wind is drear and chill, and I have been such a long time waiting." "Mother?" Simon felt a terrible coldness. The soft rush of the water seemed everywhere. She spoke again. "We have not met for so long, my beautiful child. Why do you not come to me? Why do you not come and dry a mother's tears? The wind is cold, but the river is warm and gentle. Come, will you not cross over to me?" She held her arms outstretched. Her mouth below her black eyes opened in a smile. Simon moved toward her, his lost mother who called to him, walking down the soft river bank toward the laughing black river. Her arms were open for him, for her son. And then Simon saw what she had cradled. That which now dangled from an outflung hand was a doll made from reeds and leaves and twining stems of grass. But the doll was blackened, the shriveled leaves curling back from their stems, and Simon knew suddenly that nothing alive crossed that river into the twilight country. He stopped at the water's edge and looked down. Down in the inky water there was a faint gleam of light. As he watched, it rose toward the surface, becoming 3 slender, shining shapes. The sound of the river changed, became a kind of prickling, unearthly music. The water leaped and boiled, obscuring the object's true forms, but it seemed that if he desired to, he could reach down and touch them. "Sailman!" his mother called again. He looked up to see her farther away, receding swiftly as though her gray land were a torrent rushing away from him. Her arms were held wide, and her voice was a thing of vibrant loneliness, of the cold's lust for the warm, and the darkness's hopeless desire for the light. "Simon! Simon!" It was a wail of despair. He sat stock upright on the grass in the lap of the ancient cairn. The moon still hung high, but the night had gone cold. Tendrils of mist caressed the broken stones around him as he sat, heart working madly. "Simon!" The cry came whispering up from the blackness beyond. It was a gray figure, surely, and a woman's voice calling faintly to him from the misty lich yard he had crossed. Only a tiny wriggling gray shape, a faraway flicker in the ground-clutching fog that wound through the barrows. But seeing it, Simon felt his heart would burst in his chest. He began to run across the downs, running as though the very devil chased him with grasping hands. The dark bulk of Thisterborg rose on the shrouded horizon, and the downs were all around him, and Simon ran and ran and ran. 1,000 speeding heartbeats later, he slowed at last to a ragged walk. He could not have run farther even if he had been the archdemon's quarry. He was exhausted, limping, and hungry beyond belief. His fear and confusion hung on him like a mantle of chains. The dream had frightened him so that he felt even weaker than before his sleep. Plodding forward, always with the castle at his back, he felt the memories of better times raveling away, leaving him with nothing but the thinnest of strands still tied to the world of sunlight and order and safety. What did it feel like when I used to lie in the hay-hold, in the hayloft, in the quiet? There's nothing in my head now, only words. Did I like to be there in the castle? Did I sleep there, run there, eat and talk and... I don't think so. I think I've always walked these downs beneath the moon. That white face. Walked and walked like the pitiful, lonely ghost of a mooncalf. Walked and walked. A sudden shiver of flame on the hilltop halted his gloomy imaginings. For some time the ground had been sloping steadily upward, and he had nearly reached the base of shadowy Thisterborg. Its mantle of tall trees was a solid, impenetrable darkness against the obscurity of the hill itself. Now a fire bloomed along the hill's crest, a sign of life amidst the downs and damp and centuries of death. He broke into a slow trot, the most he could manage. Perhaps it was a shepherd's campfire, a merry blaze to keep the night at bay. Perhaps they have food, a shank of mutton, a knob of bread. He had to lean forward. His innards twitched and cramped at the thought of eating. How long had it been? Only supper last? It was astonishing to consider. Even if they have no food, how wonderful it will be just to hear voices, to warm myself before a fire. A fire? A memory of hungry flames leaped before his mind's eye, bringing a different kind of hollowness. He climbed upward through the trees and tangled brush. The base of Thisterborg was ringed all around by mist, as if the hill were an island upthrust from a cobweb gray sea. As he approached the summit, he saw the blunt shapes of the anger stones crowning the final rise, etched in red relief against the sky. More stones. Stones and more stones. What did Morgane say this was, this night? If it was still the same moon, the same darkness cradling the same dim stars. What did he call it? Stoning night. As though the very stones celebrated. As if while Urchester lay sleeping behind shuttered window and latched door, the stones made holiday. In his weary thought, Simon could see them ponderously a-step, the merry-making stones bowing and wheeling, slowly turning. Stupid, he thought, your mind is wandering, and no surprise. You need food and sleep, otherwise you'll go truly mad. Whatever going mad meant. Angry all the time? Frightened of nothing? He had seen a mad woman in Battle Square, but she had merely clutched a bundle of rags and rocked herself to and fro, keening like a gull. Mad beneath the moon, a mad mooncalf. He had reached the last stand of trees that surrounded the hill crown. The air was still, as though expectant. Simon felt his hairs go all a-prickle. It suddenly seemed a good idea to walk quietly, to have a cautious look at these night shepherds instead of crashing suddenly from the underbrush like an angry boar. He worked his way closer to the light, ducking beneath the twisted limbs of a wind-racked oak. Just above him jutted the anger stones, concentric rings of tall, storm-sculpted pillars. Now he saw a cluster of man-shapes, huddled about the leaping fire at the center of the stone rings, cloaks hunched up at their shoulders. Something about them seemed stiff and uneasy, as though they waited on something expected but not necessarily desired. To the northeast, past the stones, the cap of Thisterborg narrowed. The wind-swept grass and heather there clung closely to the downsloping ground, which stretched away from the stones to sink at last out of the firelight at the hill's northern edge. Staring at the statue-still figures around the fire, Simon again felt the weight of his fear drag at him. Why did they stand so unmoving? Were they living men at all, or some eerie carvings of hill demons? One of the shapes moved to the fire and poked it with a stick. As the flames jumped, Simon saw that this one at least was a mortal man. He crawled stealthily forward, stopping just beyond the outer circle of stones. The firelight caught and reddened a momentary glimpse of metal beneath the cloak of the nearest figure. This shepherd wore a mail shirt. The vast night sky seemed to shrink down, a prisoning blanket. All the half a score of shrouded men were armored. It was the Erkenguard. He was sure of it. He cursed himself bitterly. He had come straight to their fire like a moth flinging itself into the candle flame. Why am I always such a damnable fool? A thin night wind sprang up, setting the high flames whipping like a burning pennant. The cloaked and hooded guardsmen turned their heads in unison, slowly and almost reluctantly, gazing out into the darkness at the hill's northern rim. Then Simon heard it too. Above the hissing wind that riffled the grass and gently shook the trees, there came a faint sound growing ever so gradually louder. The aching creak of wooden cartwheels. A bulky shape was climbing upward out of the obscurity of the north edge. The guardsmen moved away from the approach, circling the fire to cluster together on the side nearest Simon. No words had yet been uttered by any of them. Dim, pale shapes that slowly became horses appeared at the fringe of the fire glow. Following behind, growing distinct from the night, was a great black wagon. Black hooded figures walked on either side, 4 in all, matching the wagon's stately funeral pace. The flickering light revealed a 5th atop the wagon, hunched over the team of ice-white stallions. This last figure was somehow larger than the others and darker, as if it wore some cloak of obscurity. Its very stillness seemed to speak of a hidden, brooding power. The guards still did not move, but stood rigidly watching. Only the thin mewing of the wagon wheels punctured the silence. Simon, transfixed, felt cold pressure in his head, a gnawing clutch in his vitals. A dream! A bad dream! Why can't I move? The black cart and its attendants drew to a halt just within the circle of firelight. One of the 4 standing figures raised an arm, the back black sleeve falling away to reveal a wrist and hand as thin and white as bone. It spoke, voice silvery cold, toneless as ice cracking. We are here to fulfill the covenant. There was a stir among those who had been waiting. One of them stepped forward. As are we. Watching helplessly as this mad fancy progressed, Simon was not at all surprised to recognize the voice of Priorites. The priest pulled back his hood. Firelight traced the high arc of his forehead and emphasized the skeletal depths of his eyes. We are here as agreed, he continued. Was there a faint quaver in his voice? Have you brought that which was promised? The bone-white arm swept back, gesturing to the looming wagon. We have. Have you? Priorites nodded his head. 2 of the guardsmen bent and wrestled some burden up from the grass where it lay, dragging it forward to be dropped ungently at the alchemist's booted feet. It lies here, he said. Bring forth your master's gift. 2 of the robed figures moved to the wagon, carefully lifting down a long, dark object. As they brought it forward, one holding either end, a biting wind sprang up and whistled over the hilltop. The black robes billowed, and the hood on the nearest blew back, spilling a flurry of gleaming white hair. The face revealed in that brief moment was as delicate as a mask of the thinnest, most exquisite ivory. An instant later, the hood flapped back. Who are these creatures? Witches? Ghosts? Behind the shielding rocks, Simon brought a trembling hand up to make the sign of the tree. The white foxes. Morgeni said white foxes. Priorites. These demons, or whatever they might be. It was all too much. He must still be dreaming in the graveyard. He prayed it was so, and closed his eyes to block out the unholy imaginings. But the ground beneath him was pungent with the unmistakable smell of wet earth, and the fire crackled in his ears. Opening his eyes, he found the nightmare unchanged. What is happening? The 2 shadowy figures reached the edge of the fire circle. As the soldiers edged even farther away, they set their burden down and stepped back. It was a coffin, or at least coffin-shaped, but only 3 hands high. A ghastly bluish light smoldered along its edge. Bring forth that which you have promised, said the first dark-robed creature. Pyrates gestured, and the bundle at his feet was dragged forward. When the soldiers stepped back, the alchemist pushed the object over with the toe of his boot. It was a man, gagged and bound at the wrists. Simon only slowly recognized the round, pale face of Count Breugar, the Lord Constable. The robed figure regarded Breugar's bruised features for a long interval. Its expression was hidden in the hood's shadowed folds, but when it spoke there was a twist of anger in the clear, unearthly tones. "This does not seem to be what was promised." Pyrates tilted his body a little to the side, as if narrowing his exposure to the hooded thing. "This one allowed the promised one to escape," he said, seeming to betray some apprehension. "He will take the promised one's place." Another figure shouldered its way out from between a pair of guardsmen, moving forward to loom at Pyrates' side. "Promised? What is this promised? Who was promised?" The priest raised his hands placatingly, but his expression was stern. "Please, my king, I think you know. Please." Elias snapped his head around to stare at his counselor. "Do I know, priest? What did you promise on my behalf?" Pyrates leaned toward his master. His harsh voice slipped into a wounded tone. "Lord, you bade me do what I must for this meeting. I did it, or would have, had not this Kenit," he dug a toe into bound Breugar, "failed in his duty to his sovereign." The alchemist looked over to the dark-robed figure, whose impassivity carried nonetheless a hint of impatience. Pyrates frowned. "Please, my king, the one we speak of is gone. The point is moot. Please." He laid a light hand on Elias's cloaked shoulder. The king shook it off, staring out of the shadows of his hood at the priest, but saying nothing. Pyrates turned to the black-robed figure once more. "This one we offer you. His blood, too, is noble. His lineage is high." "Of high lineage?" the dark thing asked, and then its shoulders shook as though it laughed. "Oh, yes, that is very important. Does its family go back many generations of men?" The dark hood turned and met the shrouded gaze of its fellows. "Certainly," said Pyrates, seemingly disconcerted. "Hundreds of years." "Well, our master will certainly be pleased." And then it did laugh, a blade-edged trill of merriment that made Pyrates take a step backward. "Proceed." The priest looked to Elias, who pulled back his hood. Simon felt the looming sky crouch still closer. The king's face, pale even in the ruddy firelight, seemed to float in midair. The night swirled, and the king's impassive gaze drew light like a mirror in a torch-lit hallway. Finally, Elias nodded. Pyrates stepped forward and grasped Breugar by the collar, dragging him to the coffin box where he let him slump to the earth. The priest then unclasped his cloak, revealing a dull flare of red robe, and reached into the inner folds to withdraw a long curved blade like a sickle. He raised it before his eyes as he faced the northernmost point of the ring of stones, then began to chant, his voice rising in volume and authority. "To the Dark One, who is master of this world, who bestrides the northern sky, Facir sombres, feata concordin. To the Black Huntsman, possessor of the icy hand, Facir sombres, feata concordin. To the Storm King,
the outreaching, the dweller in the stony mountain, the frozen and burning, the sleeping but awakened. Vasir sombris, feata concordin. The black-robed figures swayed, all but the one atop the wagon, who sat as still as the anger stones, and a hiss went up from their midst, mingling with the new risen wind. Hear now your supplicant, Priorites cried. The beetle beneath your black heel, the fly between your cold fingers, the whispering dust in your endless shadow. Oves mei, hear me. Timior quellos exaltet mei. Shadow Father, let the bargain be struck. The alchemist's hand snaked down and grasped Breugar's head. The Count, who had been lying limp at his feet, suddenly lurched forward and away, leaving the startled Priorites holding nothing but a hank of bloodied hair. Simon watched helplessly as the pop-eyed Lord Constable stumbled directly toward his hiding place. He dimly heard Priorites' angry shouting. The close-leaning night tightened around him, choking his breath and blackening his vision as a pair of guards leaped after Breugar. By the way, I talked for too long at the beginning, so we're going to probably run a few minutes past the top of the hour. The Count was only a few paces away, running awkwardly because of his tied hands, when he tripped and fell. His legs kicked and his breath sawed noisily behind the gag as the guardsmen bore down on him. Simon had risen to a half-crouch behind the concealing stone, and his weary heart was hammering as though it might rupture. He tried desperately to still his trembling legs. The guards, close enough to touch, yanked Breugar to his feet with fearful curses. One of them raised a sword and struck the Count with the flat of his blade. Simon could see Priorites staring out from the circle of light, and the king's ashen, fascinated face beside him. Even as Breugar's limp form was wrestled back toward the fire, Priorites continued to squint at the place where the Count had fallen. Who is there? The voice seemed to fly on the back of the wind, straight into Simon's head. Priorites was staring right at him. He must see him. Come out, whoever you are. I command you to come forward. The black-robed figures began a strange, ominous humming, and Simon struggled against the alchemist's will. He remembered what had almost happened to him in the storeroom. Excuse me. He remembered what had almost happened to him in the storeroom and braced himself against the compelling force. But he was weakened, wrung dry like a piece of cloth. Come out, the voice repeated, and a questing something reached out to touch his mind. He fought, trying to hold shut the doors of his soul, but the probing thing was stronger than he by far. It had only to find him, to grasp him. If the covenant no longer suits you, a thin voice said, then let it be broken off now. It is dangerous to leave the ritual half-spoken. Very dangerous. It was the hooded figure speaking, and Simon could feel the red priest's questing thoughts shaken. What? Priorites spoke like a man new wakened. Perhaps you do not understand what you are doing here, the black shape hissed. Perhaps you do not comprehend who and what is involved. No. Yes, I do, the priest stammered. Simon could somehow sense his nervousness, as if it were an odor. Quickly, he turned to the guardsman, bring that sack of offal here before me. The guards dragged their burden back to lie again at his feet. "Pryrates," the king began. "Please, your majesty, please. It is only a moment now." Horribly, a part of Pryrates' thought had not left Simon's mind, some clinging tag end that the priest had not pulled back. He could almost taste the alchemist's quivering expectancy as Pryrates pulled up Breugar's head, could sense the priest responding to the low murmuring of the hooded ones. And now he felt something deeper, too, a chill wedge of horror driving into his raw and sensitive mind. Some inexplicable other was there in the night, a terrible something else. It hovered over the hilltop like a choking cloud and burned inside the seated figure on the wagon like a hidden black flame. It dwelt also in the bodies of the standing stones, infusing them with its greedy attention. The sickle rose. For a moment, the flashing crimson curve of the blade was a second moon against the sky, an old red crescent moon. Pryrates cried out in a high-pitched language Simon could not understand. "Ai samusiteja! Ai nakiga!" The sickle descended, and Breugar sagged forward. Purplish blood pumped from his throat, spattering down onto the coffin. For a moment the Lord Constable twitched violently beneath the priest's hand, then went limp as an eel. The dark flow continued to drizzle on the black lid. Enmeshed in the bizarre intermixture of thought, Simon helplessly experienced Pryrates' panicky exhilaration. Behind that, he felt the something else, a cold, dark, horribly vast thing. Its ancient thoughts sang with obscene joy. One of the soldiers was throwing up. But for the flabby numbness that unmanned and silenced him, Simon would have done the same. Pryrates pushed the count's body aside. Breugar tumbled in a disordered heap, oyster-pale fingers curled toward the sky. The blood smoked on the dark box, and the blue light flickered more brightly. The line it described around the edge became more pronounced. Slowly, dreadfully, the lid began to open, as if forced up from within. "Holy Osiris who loves me! Holy Osiris who loves me!" Simon's thoughts were a rush, a panic tangle. "Help me! Help me! Help! It's the devil in that box. He's coming out. Help! Save me! Oh, help!" "We have done it! We have done it!" Other thoughts, foreign, not his. "Too late to turn back. Too late." The first step, the coldest, most terrible thoughts of all. How they will pay and pay and pay. As the lid tilted up, the light within burst forth, throbbing indigo touched with smoky gray and sullen purple, a terrible bruised light that pulsed and glared. The lid fell open and the wind tightened its pitch as if frightened, as if sickened by the radiance of the long black box. At last what was inside could be seen. "Jingizu," a voice whispered in Simon's head. "Jingizu." It was a sword. It lay inside the box, deadly as an adder. It might have been black, but a floating sheen mottled the blackness, a crawling gray like oil on dark water. The wind shrieked. "It beats like a heart, the heart of all sorrow." Calling, it sang inside Simon's head, a voice both horrible and beautiful, seductive as claws gently scraping his skin. "Take it, Highness!" Pryrates urged through the hiss of the wind. Enthralled, helpless, Simon suddenly wished he had the strength to take it himself. Could he not? Power was singing to him, singing of the thrones of the mighty, the rapture of desire fulfilled. Elias took a dragging step forward. One by one, the soldiers around him stumbled back, turning to run, sobbing or praying down the hill, lurching into the darkness of the girdling trees. Within moments, only Elias, Pryrates, and hidden Simon remained on the hilltop with the hooded ones and their sword. Elias took another step. Now he stood over the box. His eyes were wide with fear. He seemed stricken by wrenching doubt, his lips working soundlessly. The unseen fingers of the wind plucked at his cloak, and the hill grasses twined about his ankles. "You must take it," Pryrates said again, and Elias stared at him as though seeing the alchemist for the first time. "Take it!" Pryrates' words danced frantically through Simon's head, like rats in a burning house. The king bent, reaching out his hand. Simon's lust turned to sudden horror at the wild, empty nothingness of the sword's dark song. "It's wrong! Can't he feel it? Wrong!" As Elias's hand neared the sword, the wail of the wind subsided. The 4 hooded figures stood motionless before the wagon. The 5th seemed to sink into deeper shadow. Silence fell on the hilltop like a palpable thing. Elias grasped the hilt, lifting the blade out of the coffin in one smooth movement. As he held it before him, the fear was suddenly wiped from his face, and his lips parted in a helpless, idiot smile. He lifted the sword high. A blue shimmer played along the edge, marking it out from the blackness of the sky. Elias's voice was almost a whimper of pleasure. "I will take the master's gift. I will honor our pact." Slowly, the blade held before him, he sank to one knee. "Hail to Ineluki, Storm King!" The wind sprang up anew, shrieking. Simon reeled back from the flapping, whirling hillfire as the 4 robed figures lifted their white arms, chanting, "Ineluki, aye! Ineluki, aye!" "No," Simon's thoughts flurried. "The king! All is lost! Run, Joshua! Sorrow! Sorrow on all the land!" The 5th hooded shape began to writhe atop the wagon. The black robe fell away, and a shape of fire crimson light was revealed, flapping like a burning sail. A ghastly, heart-gnawing fear beat outward from the thing as it began to grow before Simon's terror-fixed eyes, bodiless and billowing, larger and larger, until the empty, wind-snapping bulk of it loomed over all, a creature of howling air and glowing redness. "The devil is here! Sorrow! His name is Sorrow! The king has brought the devil! Morgenes, holy Osiris, save me! Save me! Save me!" He ran mindlessly down through black night, away from the red thing and the exulting something else. The sound of his flight was lost in the screaming wind. Branches tore at his arms and hair and face like claws. "The icy claw of the north, the ruins of Azua." And then he fell at last, tumbling, and his spirit fled from such horror, fled away into deeper darkness. It seemed, and as his spirit fled from such horror, fled away into deeper darkness, it seemed that in the final instant he could hear the very stones of the earth moaning in their beds beneath him. And there's the end. And whoop, we did run over a ways, didn't we? So I will make a quick wrap up. Thank you very much for joining me. A great pleasure to share time with you. And I hope you will, if you're not able to be back with me tomorrow at 7, or later today at 7 p.m. for the next reading, that you will catch up with me this same time next week. So thank you very much. Thank you for spending time with me. I appreciate it. And I'll see you soon. Okay. Peace.